So we're going to begin by, the format's going to be, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and go through your background and all of that. And then we have an hour and a half to have this dialogue. Each member of this advisory committee is going to ask you a question.
Okay.
They'll introduce themselves before they ask you the question.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's going to be a little awkward because I have to repeat their question because this is where the mic is.
Okay.
So that
No, that's good. Gives me an extra minute to take
so
it.
You'll get a second time to hear the question. And then at the end, I'll ask you to summarize up and we'll go from there.
Okay.
It needs to make one microphone adjustment on
Yep, absolutely. Okay.
Are we
Thank you.
good? Okay, so reintroduce yourself to the committee.
Okay.
Tell them about your background, your experiences, and what positions you to be the best possible candidate to serve as superintendent of schools in Sarasota County.
Okay, great. First of all, I want to thank all of you for serving on this committee. I know it's a big time commitment and appreciate the opportunity to come before you today. And so just to share a little bit about me, I was born here in Sarasota, grew up here my whole life, went to Gulfgate, Brookside, Riverview. Then I came back to teach, so started my career here. I taught at Laurel Nokomis, 7th grade first, then I taught at Ashton, then I was an assistant principal at Toledo Blade and Gulfgate, and then became principal of Philippi. I was principal of Philippi for 13 years, and then moved to the district office, and I was the executive director of human resources for 2 years, and then the past 4 months, I have served as the interim superintendent. I'm also a parent in the district. I have a child going into 5th grade and a child going into 6th grade. So really have had the opportunity to see the district from many different angles. You know, I feel that I know the strengths, the weaknesses in our district. I know the leverage points of where we can make adjustments so that we can make improvements. I feel I have the trust and the confidence and support of parents and teachers in our community. Over the past 4 months, we've been able to focus on a lot of things in a short period of time. I brought in Exceptional Learning Solutions to do a programmatic study of our ESE program. And so that kicks off actually this Wednesday. We've got technology solutions. We're going to be revamping all of our technology solutions in the next year. Proposed an organizational structure that would, I think, make our system much more efficient. Evaluated our land holdings and looking for growth. I know the different parts in our community to know where we're growing and where we need to potentially add, more schools. I've worked with our CFO to reallocate all the Esser dollars. We have 1 more year. 2024 is when the Esser dollars are done, and I want to make sure that we utilize those funds to move student achievement forward. We have the Summer Leadership Institute, which will be focused on all of the operations side, making sure that our schools know the safety and security components, human resources components, and customer service, and restructured our school board workshops to really focus on the key things that can move us forward. I believe I'm the only candidate that can hit the job running on June 15th. So after the selection is made on the 14th, because I know the community partners, I'm fully vested in this community. I can promise you I will not let this community down, the board or the students. I have 2 students in the system myself. I am fully committed to this district to make it the best that it can be. And so that's a little overview of what I bring to the table.
Thanks. First question comes from our student.
Great, okay.
All right, well, I'm Sebastian Gerstel. We've obviously met. I'm a student review. I'm going to be a junior next year. But my only question is regarding your effectiveness. When you were the Executive Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations, on your resume you mentioned that you focused and one of your jobs there was handling investigations throughout the district. Looking at Riverview High School specifically, as a school I go to, as a school I've spoken with many teachers with, the investigations there have skyrocketed. They have more investigations now than any other school, at some point even combined. And I've spoken with teachers who said that they have investigations there that are harassing, demeaning, disgusting, divisive, and yet while you're the Executive Director of Human Resources, this has grown and nothing happened. So obviously you have the experience. So my only question is, if you were to be superintendent, will you be effective?
So, no, great question, and thank you for being active as a student. Do you need to repeat the question
Do I
first?
need to repeat that? So that's a pretty long question, so I'll summarize in that the question regarding your experience as when you were in human resources and the investigations at his high school, how effective will you be going forward as a superintendent, particularly regarding investigations?
Okay, no, that's a great question, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate your involvement as a student. I spent 24 of my 26 years at the school level in the instructional arena, and just recently came over to human resources, which is perceived to be on the operational side of the house. Unfortunately, one thing I noticed that is a big concern in our district, and this is something that I put forth with the organizational chart, is that human resources is under operations. It doesn't report directly to the superintendent. There's not a direct connection there, where human resources, I believe it's the most important thing we have in our district is human capital. We spend 85% of our budget goes on human capital. And so with the investigations and the different components, there is a disconnect with what's happening in our district. So in human resources, and I, in my 2 years that I was in that position, really tried to have that connection and make sure that I was able to communicate that. Unfortunately, the current system doesn't allow for that. And my structure, I have human resources reporting directly to the superintendent so that issues as they're brought up are that we're able to handle them, and that it's being handled at the district level, at the top level. There are certain parts of the organization that need to directly be to the superintendent, and that is one. Safety security is another one, and these are two of the departments where I feel like our organizational structure then allows for things like you explained. We noticed it in HR, so we went and had conversations, but we're not part of overseeing the schools. We're not part of what's perceived as the academic side of the house. So what you'll see from my plan, and when you have a chance to look through my book, is all of mine and the whole Summer Leadership Institute is to really put the focus back on getting operations part of instruction. We have neglected that for many years, and we have focused on academics, which is great, but you can't have academics unless you have safety, and you can't have academics unless the people at the administration at the school understands human resources and they understand the laws and how things need to work. So the Summer Leadership Institute that I have designed for July 26th and 27th is solely focused on these important components. So it's safety and security, human resources, customer service, the three areas that I think we need to focus on in our district.
Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Cottrell. I'm a former parent, and I am currently a mentor at Riverview High School. I guess my question to you is, there's been a lot of talk about how we're going to prevent the learning gaps for preschool through 5th grade in the elementary. But I would like to know, as a superintendent, how you would go in and handle those students who are 6th grade to 12th grade who already have those gaps in their learning, be it reading or math. What will you do as a superintendent to ensure that we fill those gaps in, and then when those students graduate, that they have all the skills that they need and they're successful?
So that question is regarding achievement and learning gaps, that there's an emphasis on pre-K to 5, but the question specifically is, how are you as superintendent going to work toward closing the achievement learning gaps of students in grades 6 through 12?
Okay, and so if it's okay, I'm going to start with elementary and move my way up to middle school. So first of all, when we talk about pre-K, and I had the opportunity over the past few months to go visit Goshio's program and see their pre-K program, which is fabulous, and it's a great program that they have in place. What I've noticed is we need to make sure that in kindergarten that we're teaching kindergarten differently, because the kids are coming in higher. If we teach the same kindergarten curriculum, at the end of kindergarten, they're going to end up at the same place they were to begin with. So the initial part is putting an emphasis at the elementary level. In a presentation I did recently to the board, I talked about Tier 1 instruction. When we get to 3rd grade, right now, it's our FAST data that's coming in. We are 61% in 3rd grade proficient, which is not okay. And 61%, I would say, is not okay after Tier 1, let alone Tier 2 and Tier 3 and at the end of the year. So we're not doing the right thing with how we teach to begin with. And so to me, it's going back to the basics. So going back to like 2005 when they came up with the 90-minute reading block at the state and mandated that at the state level, we had lots of trainings teaching teachers how do you go about that 90-minute or even 120-minute reading block? How do you craft your instruction and your reading block? When I would say to my teachers at the school, how many minutes are the kids actually reading in the classroom? How many words does each individual child read during that block? Not how many words are read to them, but how many words are they reading? So first part is getting our elementary kids where they are, because we don't want them going to middle school lower, because once they're lower, it's significantly harder to catch up. Now, when we go to middle school, our scores are even worse. When we break it down, we're looking at 54, 55% of our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students who are reading proficiently. And for Sarasota, it's not even in the ballpark of what would be acceptable. And so one thing I notice a lot of times, we as a district and many districts, they focus so much on tier 3. It's pulling the kids out, pulling the kids out. If you pull the kids out and they're pulled out of the regular instruction and they're not exposed to the regular instruction, they're never going to get there because they're constantly being, pulled out of the classroom. I use the example oftentimes, I do a lot of analogies with sports analogies. And so at the gym, if you're trying to do a pull-up, and you can't do a pull-up on your own, then they have bands. And you can have different levels of bands that help support you. But everybody stays on the pull-up bar, and everybody's trying to do a pull-up. The minute you take them off of the pull-up bar altogether, and they're not even doing that same activity, there's no way we're gonna get them at the end able to do what they need to do. So to answer your question, my focus is on tier 1 instruction. We need to go back to the basics. We need to talk about what does your reading block look like? How is it organized? When the kids come in, what is their bell work activity? What is the whole group activity? When they split into small groups, what does that look like? When you do need to pull them for tier 2 instruction is meant that you pull them, you provide support, and then they go back to tier 1. The idea is that this is a revolving thing and that the kids are moving along at that level. I think as a district, the pull-out method of pulling the kids out of that setting is what's leading to the scores that we have. And I think keeping them there and keeping the expectations and providing and pushing in the support is what's going to get our kids to that higher level.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Kind of took it. We'll come back. You'll get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Teresa DeWitt, and I am a mental health professional of over 20 years, and I love this district, and I have 6-year-old twins, and so we're at home right now. But I have really been focused on the social emotional learning in the castle, as Dr. Foster well knows. And so you had mentioned a reallocation of Esser Funds. Now I'm gonna say this first. In 2017, Castle, who is the official partner of all the new social emotional learning, did their own study. And they determined out of 68 studies that not one study could meet tier 1 nor tier 2 of academic excellence. So with that being said, the board has made it very clear that one of their goals is to begin to develop an exit strategy away from the Esser dollars. We obtained $68 million roughly in Esser funds. And so you had mentioned in your opening remarks of reallocating Esser funds. Could you kind of elaborate on why you have decided that you want to reallocate funds, as well as what type of exit strategy away from the Castle Social Emotional Learning Esser dollars?
So, do you need
So this question is related to Esser funds and how you are going to manage the district from receipt of those funds and what those funds were supporting in terms of programs, right? And then in terms of the transition to when those funds go away, how you're going to make that transition, particularly related to social emotional learning.
Not so much them going away, currently what we have.
Right.
Yeah,
How you're going to allocate.
she has a reallocation plan.
How are you going to allocate the Esser funds that are currently existing in the district?
Okay, so Esser's kind of a tricky thing, and I think it's something that every district's dealing with. Over the course of the past few years, we've received roughly over $100 million, so significant funds through Esser dollars. And So there are certain categories of where you're supposed to allocate these funds. So going back to human resources again and talking about sometimes the disconnect, I think the thought process was add positions, add positions, add positions. I'm sitting in HR during a hiring crisis saying, you keep adding positions, you're pulling people out of the classroom, you're bringing people to the district office. It's much more important. If you can't have every position filled, I'd rather have the position filled that's in front of the child. That should be the number one priority. And so what I have done as far as reallocating is try to push them to the schools so that all the positions are based at the school. So right now they will be additional supports that we will monitor at the end of the year. Every year at the end of the year we go through a budget process. Sometimes positions then we are no longer able, we've had grant funded positions over the years. Those staff members then are absorbed into that cost center to potentially take other positions at that cost center. So we have a number of positions that are funded. And so the plan, we have behavior specialists that we added at all the elementary schools, in addition to some additional ones at some of the middle schools. We've added extra school counselors at the elementary level. Our ratio was 1 to 750, so we've moved that down to 1 to 400 at the elementary level, which added about 10 based on the enrollment at different school sites. We've added literacy coaches, which is actually a new requirement by the state, so it puts us in compliance with House Bill 7039. We've added, there was a pickup position that was previously there. I have changed that position over to a data coach, so it serves a very clear purpose. And so the plan that I have in place is that all of these positions that have been added, that there will be measurements. So we measure the effectiveness of that position. So what impact does the behavior specialist position have on student achievement? What impact does the literacy coach have on student achievement? The data coach position. So as we go through the end of the year, not only the positions, but also programs. We have the Summer Learning Academy. We have other programs that are out there so that we can say at the end of the year when we start to then cut the budget, that we say, okay, this is the program that we need to keep. This is the program that maybe is not as effective. And the one thing that I have shared with principals along the way is just because something's ESSER funded doesn't mean it goes away. And just because something's that is not ESSER funded doesn't mean it stays. We're going to keep the things that make a difference. And so those are things that I have shared. Another thing that we've tried to push, I've met extensively with our finance team trying to go through, is we've tried to fund things that are not people. So for example, the technology solutions. If we look at our systems, they're out of date. Our student information system, our budget system, our human resource system. Many of you know it when you're logging into the student portal, it's not nearly as up to date as what other districts have. So we had talked and put some money to the side, and my proposal was we're gonna update them all. We're gonna use the ESSER dollars on this because it's a one-time expense. And it seems to me it's a great use of funds. We have the funds, it can be utilized in that way, and it also gets us up to speed where we need to be. Now on the social emotional learning, I think that's kind of a separate piece, and I can answer that as well, and had extensive conversations. I know we had 2 items on the agenda this last week that were kind of tricky. So we had Admentum, which is a course recovery course that for high school students, we actually have students that are in it. That particular course was, our program was tricky in the sense that the only other one that does that same purpose is Edgenity, which the state had said not to use. We had received something from the state that said this is a program that we should not be using. So we are working with the state on different programs. I'm trying to bring things more in-house. So I'll use Solution Tree has been used over the last year. There are some questions about Solution Tree. To me, I feel we can do it on our own. So Solution Tree is the program they were using with collaborative planning. And so that's bringing our teams in to do professional learning communities. Sarasota, I think we can do it the Sarasota way. We have great staff here. We can bring it in. We can make it in-house. We can make it better than anything that you can buy out there. And as we go through this transition period with different resources, it's trying to bring more of it in-house. I always feel that the in-house meets our needs more anyway, that we're able to create the program that's going to bring us where we need to be. And at Sarasota, we want to lead. We don't want to follow, so we want to set the course. And so hopefully. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Valerie Kammermeyer, and I'm a parent in the district. I have 2 children, one in elementary, one in middle. My elementary student is a struggling reader and reading behind grade level. My middle school student is gifted in reading above grade level. So my question to you is, where do you think iReady comes into play with the academics and reading recovery? Because they spend a lot of time on iReady, and I really don't feel it's benefiting either one of them, the one that's behind or the one that's ahead.
Right. Okay.
So this question revolves around iReady, and where do you see its purpose in terms of the reading program in the district?
Okay. And okay, so a couple things. So I'm going to go where you mentioned you had one student that was struggling, one student that was advanced. My theme the last year that I was at Philippi was to proficiency and beyond. And so my thing is, as we're pushing our students, the first thing is you want everyone to be proficient. We want at a minimum everyone is reading on level. I feel strongly at also making sure that we don't stop at that level. So if a student is scoring at a 3, that we move for a 4. And if a student's scoring at a 4, that we move to a 5. If a student's at a 5, we keep them at a 5. And so that's one piece. iReady, I think that goes back to originally where I talked about the reading block. I think we're spending a lot of time on things that are not the best instruction. And so then time is being spent to say, okay, we're going to put in a class of, let's just say in elementary, you've got a class of 18. We're going to put 14 on iReady so that I can work with 4 one-on-one. The question is that the best use of that time? I think it's going back to saying every minute counts. Every minute that the child walks in that class, you have a 90-minute reading block. That 90-minute reading block needs to be focused and challenging the students the entire 90-minute reading block. I think iReady has, and other tools, I know we have Dreambox now for math, are being utilized to kind of keep them busy. And yes, there are some components of it that can potentially provide extra support and bring them at their level. We used a program at Philippi called iExcel, and that program is based on the actual standards. And so you would go through and you'd have, I'll just use math as an example, we'd have the entire math, it has all the math standards on there for the state of Florida. And so the kids would be assigned different things. Today we're learning fractions, you're gonna go in and you're gonna master fractions. And then we would do tests every 6 months based on the whole curriculum. And then if kids missed so many questions, they would be assigned categories where it's very strategic as to you didn't master the skill and I've taught this skill, so you're gonna go on this and I'm gonna monitor that you mastered this, or you've mastered this and now I'm going to challenge you. And we used that method for many years. When my last year there, we had 47% of our 5th graders scoring level 5. And so I think a program like that is much more effective than putting them to iReady programs. You know, it's supposed to tell where you are. They take a test. I have 2 kids, so I know. I have a child with ADHD, and so I know trying to keep her attention. She's clicking. She's all over. So now all of a sudden she has questions that aren't on her level because she was distracted, and then that becomes her instruction in the classroom. So that's where I think the teacher always needs to be guiding it, and that's where I said that iExcel is more of a teacher-driven. It's computer-based, but it's teacher-driven, computer-based. And so I think that goes back to our Tier 1 instruction. What are we using, and how are we meeting the needs of the kids as far as crafting that whole block?
Well, it doesn't help that they can hit a button and then it reads to them,
Correct.
because then they're not learning to read.
Right, and I use, like I said, I use sports analogies. I swam growing up, I swam for the Sharks, and I always said, you know, to the teachers, you can't learn to swim by standing on the side of the pool deck. You have to jump in, which means they need to read. They need to be the ones doing it, having it read to them. And there are many, and that goes back, and I don't know if there's going to be a question here about the evaluation. I think it's also having the administrator know how to evaluate that, so that when you're walking through a classroom, that they know what to look for. Because if you're walking through a classroom, and a lot of times it looks good. You walk in, the kids are sitting there, everybody has a book in front of them, it looks good. But if you sit there for the whole 90 minutes and the student personally reads 10 words or 20 words, they're not going to make progress. And so that's where we need to do a reset on Tier 1 instruction. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Medallia Glover, and I am a resident of Sarasota County, and I have 4 children, 3 of which who have successfully graduated from high school, so thank you. I have one who is still in high school, and she's going to be a 10th grader.
Okay.
So my question is revolving around all of the awesome program ideas that you even talked about today, and how you're going to support educators as they need to be able to, 1, understand the changes that you would like to implement, and 2, actually work through that in the classroom. So can you speak to some of the ideas that you would like to put in place to help support those educators?
Okay, absolutely.
So the question is, how are you going to support the teachers and educators throughout the district regarding implementation of these programs and strategies?
Okay. And so a lot of the programs that I'm presenting are really back to basics. It's going back to how we craft a simple reading block, which I think we have as a district, and we've had a number of different superintendents, and so we've had a number of changes, but we're going to do this program, we're going to buy this program, we're going to buy this program, we're going to buy this program. I talk to teachers all the time that they feel like they're running in a million directions, and that they're always in different trainings, and it makes it difficult then to teach. I believe, we hire teachers, we hire highly educated teachers. I view teachers almost like an art form, in the sense that they're the masters of their craft. We need to provide the tools and the support, and then we need to give them the time to do what they do best. I taught in the district for 8 years. I was never pulled out of a classroom for a training, not one time. Somehow our district has shifted from that, and I know this from being in HR, and we would have days where we had 400 teachers out on a given day, and there's no way that students can learn when the teacher's not there. When you have 400 teachers out, and I would get asked, why is our sub rate 85%? And I would turn around, and this goes back to where I said there was a disconnect. I'd say, why do you have 400 teachers out on any given day? We're filling, 350 of them, 360 of them, but we shouldn't have that many teachers out of the classroom. We shouldn't have them out doing all these trainings. And so what I hear teachers say, and I talk to teachers all the time, is they just want to have the time to be in the classroom to teach. And so really, I think the models and the ideas that I'm presenting are just to really simplify what we have happening, so that we can focus on the basics. And when you talk about reading, and I talked about House Bill 7039, which is the new House bill specifically for student outcomes, and it gears towards reading. It's specifically about going back to phonics-based instruction. It's not anything flashy. It's about teaching phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary. And so to me, that we're just getting back to where we should be. And so I hope the transition would actually, in some ways, be a relief for the teachers versus a stressor for.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Elvira Kluig, and I'm a chiropractic physician. I'm a Sarasota resident. I also have a high schooler at Pineview. My question to you is, how will you ensure that all students will be protected?
How will you ensure that all students are protected throughout the district?
Okay, and I view protection as from safety and security in two arenas. So one is obviously our police officers and our safety and security team, and so I'll start with that. We've had a number of instances on campuses this year where we had an increase in drugs on campus and fights on campus and other things. So we had a workshop to discuss what we needed to do with that. One thing that we discovered is our security monitor positions, we were having a difficult time filling, similar to our bus driver positions. And so our board has agreed to increase the rate of those positions and to move them under safety and security, so that our safety and security monitors will, it will be a higher rate of pay, so I think we'll be able to fill all those positions, and they will be under the safety and security department, under our police force, so that they are properly monitoring the campus, so that we never have a student feel unsafe on campus. We need to make sure that we have eyes everywhere, that students can go and use the restroom, and they don't have to worry that there's going to be someone doing drugs in the restroom or anything like that, so that we have proper security throughout the campus. On the other side is making sure from a support system that we have the supports in place. So as I shared, we did add behavior specialists to every elementary school, and that is something I know as principal of Philippi for 13 years, it's something that is needed, and I view the behavior specialist as also providing positive, proactive support. We've added the guidance, the counselors at the elementary, so decreasing that ratio so that any child that feels unsafe in any way, whether it's a child coming from home and there's a concern at home, or it's a situation in the classroom, that they have someone that they can talk to. Our ratio at the elementary level was such that we didn't have that available. We also, in the most recent board workshop, we are starting to take some of the mental health dollars that we were contracting out with outside services, and we're doing that more in-house. So decreasing our ratio for social workers so that they would have 2 schools versus 3 schools, so that they are there and available. Other things that I think are very important is having a very clear support code of conduct as to these are the expectations, and that we hold everybody to that, so that nobody is doing something to another child and making another child feel uncomfortable, that there are clear consequences when those things happen, so that kids can come to school, they feel safe on campus. Safety and security is our #1 concern. If kids don't feel safe when they walk on campus, they're not going to be able to learn. So all the things we've allocated, and going back to the Esser, we've allocated $3.5 to $5 million. The board's still kind of deciding exactly where those funds are going to fall, but over $3.5 million specifically to these areas. So did I? No.
We're going to hold off 1 second. Thank you. So I think I'm doing all right repeating your questions, but we're going to move this mic around because your questions are really outstanding. So I want to make sure, some of them are pretty long, and I want to make sure this is a better way. So I will not have to repeat the questions.
Okay, all right, perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Foster. Ron Cutsinger, I'm Sarasota County Commissioner. 3 boys born and raised here, all graduates of the school system. I'd like to kind of change the focus just for a minute here. I'm kind of passionate about maybe moving more from the mindset where you graduate and go to college and then develop your career to, the thought here recently more so that we maybe focus on a vocational career and train students for the career that they're going to move into, and not, have $300,000 worth of debt and try to, dig out of that. So I'd be interested in your philosophy about vocational type specific training for a career.
Okay, and so last year we had the first year of our construction academy, and so that was at Riverview, a huge success. They were able to put 60 students in that program. We had, I believe, over 120 students apply, so we had more than double interest than what they were able to accommodate in that program. So this year, moving into next year, we're expanding that program, and so that program will be expanded to Venice High School and Northport High School. Also, we have a workshop coming up with STC, and specifically in Northport, looking to expand and really working with the community as to the needs. So construction was a need. Another need as the hospital continues to expand is that we need medical staff. And so STC, in partnership with the Northport community, as they continue to build the hospital wing off Laurel Road and now expanding, I believe, down into Northport, and making sure that our students have these opportunities for areas that we know in our community we have a significant need for. So I think our district, that's one area. I think our district has, a robust technical college that can continue to be expanded. We're continuing to add different trades. We recently just discussed the agricultural program, and so that is being expanded. It's off McIntosh Road, and it's going to be connected to Sarasota High School, so students can go and be part of that program if they're wanting a career in agriculture. And so just trying to look at different areas and continuing to provide programs, because that's our, what we want is that kids are either college or career ready. And we do have a position that specifically works with high school students so that everybody has a path. And so, and most recently at the end of graduation, they had all the high school seniors kind of take a picture with what they were doing next and what their path was. And so I think continuing to work with the community to find out the needs in the community, if it's construction, if it's hospital, other needs, and making sure that we provide those opportunities.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Morning, Dr. Foster. I'm Chris Morales, the Deputy Chief of Northport Police. I grew up in Northport. I went through the school system, through the school board, Sarasota County, graduated Venice High. I have two boys in the school system now. One's a sophomore at Northport High, and one's a fifth grader at Toledo Blade. My wife's a school counselor down in Northport as well. So my question is kind of geared to the mental health, and you've kind of triggered on it a couple times in some of your questions from the previous assessment or interviewers here. The ratio you used, you said, was 1 to 400 for elementary and 1 to 700 for counselors, but which was increasing another counselor for every elementary school pretty much. But the question is that an effective methodology in determining the appropriate staff needed to deal with mental health services in these schools? Because the question is what is what is your answer to the other schools that are outside of those elementary schools, such as middle schools and high schools, that are experiencing higher requests of mental health services but do not meet that methodology of 1 to 700?
So 1 to 700 was the current, that was what the ratio we had been using at the elementary level. So we were using a ratio, and actually Ms. Ward probably knows it the best, but we were using a ratio at the high school level, and as we went down to the elementary level, unfortunately during like the recession, elementary got cut and we were put to a 700 to 1 ratio, where the high schools and middle schools were more at a 400 to 1. So it's just putting elementary at the same ratio as the other levels. But I view the school counselor as more of a preventative tier 1 type approach that's providing the support they're able. And one other thing I've done is I've taken the expectations of doing the paperwork with ESE off of the counselors. They were doing a lot of things that weren't even counseling. So the counselor, you would have one counselor at an elementary school that was responsible for all of these things that didn't have anything to do with counseling, that basically left them no time to provide counseling services. So this model allows them at a ratio of 400 to 1 now at the elementary level to provide counseling. And so what that does is it provides the opportunity to go in and do classroom guidance. So when kids come in kindergarten, a lot of kids don't know certain things that they're supposed to do and not do. So this is teaching them right off the bat. So I use the example of Kelso's choices in kindergarten. You come in and you say, okay, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. If somebody says something wrong, this is how you, or something that you don't like, this is how you respond to them, this is an appropriate response. So all of that is how you work with all of the students. When you're talking about mental health, the mental health therapists, those are assigned to each individual school, and that's different. Those are mental health dollars versus the counselors were used through Esser dollars. So we still have the mental health allocation, and the mental health allocation is based on the needs of the school. So what we're doing differently and starting to shift is to bring it in-house. We've been contracting out through outside agencies, and there have been a number of, it's been difficult to get mental health therapists, so we're starting to bring those more in-house is the shift we're making there. But every school is assigned mental health therapists based on the need. So middle and high school have more mental health therapists than the elementary, but the counselors was more on a preventative measure. Another thing we're doing on a preventative measure with our police officers is to offer the LEAD program. So we used to do the DARE program many years ago, and it got cut over the years. And so the LEAD program is also another thing as far as helping the kids as a proactive approach to teach the kids about, not to do drugs, how to respond to people, if they have a conflict, all of those proactive things. So as they go into middle school and high school, that they make, better choices, hopefully, as far as behavior is concerned. But the mental health therapists, those are separate dollars, and that ratio has not changed. And we've significantly increased that over the years based on mental health dollars that have been provided from the state.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Morning, Dr. Foster. I'm Sarasota County Sheriff Kurt Hoffman. We've met before. I asked this question, kind of an operational question, and maybe I can learn something from your methodology. But in a district this large, I have over 1,000 employees that are spread out around the county, very similar to you. How do you ensure when you change a policy, many of the things you've talked about, or a procedure or a security matter or whatever, that's got to permeate the entire district and everybody has to be on the same page? And, when you're such a large organization, one, getting the message out, what your desire and what the board's desire is, all the way down to the lowest level. And then your methodology for following up to make sure while you're clear up here on the north end, at the southernmost school, they're following the same policy in terms of what your directive is?
So, yeah, thank you for the question. When I first got in the position as interim, one of the first things I did was I proposed a new organizational chart. And so what has happened over the years in our district during the recession, we cut a lot of positions. So we would cut a position, people would absorb jobs. We'd cut a position, people would absorb jobs. And then we ended up with this structure that's fragmented, and the communication lines are not clear. And we end up with HR on the opposite side of the house not having time in front of principals with very important information that principals don't know can get the district in trouble. And same with safety and security. So the plan with the organizational chart, which if selected as full-time, I hope will go through, and then the Summer Leadership Institute to have a complete reset. And even in crafting the Summer Leadership Institute, which is it's a training that we do for all administrators in the summer. So we have roughly 270 administrators. That includes principals, assistant principals, and district-wide, is to have, as I've shared a couple times in here, a complete reset. And even in starting to create that and working with some of the district leadership, it started to shift over to instruction. And instruction's very important, but there's the organizational structure that's important first. And so I have shifted that and said, no, this training will only focus on these key things. Everyone must know safety and security. Safety and security must be at every principal and AP meeting. And so we can harden the schools, we can do all these things. It's only as good as the people. And if the people are making sure that we have the campus secure on the outside, that they're making sure it stays secure on the outside. It's the people that make sure. As different things, as we change different policies as far as who can have access to campus or what badge they wear, we need to make sure that everyone has that communication. So the plan is that training in July will do a reset with this new organizational structure so that the expectations are there. My plan specifically with safety and security is that you have an assistant principal assigned to specifically monitor safety and security. We have an assistant principal assigned to facilities, we have assistant principal assigned to sports, but we don't have an assistant principal assigned to safety and security. So I think it's creating that organizational structure. I don't, if you've had a chance to watch some of the meetings, I proposed different positions and why we need key leadership positions, and actually propose positions at the higher end, that it's very important that we have some of these higher level positions in order to make sure that things run smoothly. And I use the football analogy that you can't win a Super Bowl just by putting more players on the field. You have to coach. And even Tom Brady needs a coach. And we need to make sure that we have a quarterback coach, a running back coach, an offensive coordinator, and a head coach. So having that organizational structure and making sure that we're working as one in order to be successful. So my plan with that is, as I said, doing this reset. Safety and security, human resources are two of the key things that need to report directly to the superintendent. And then anytime that there's a change there, that goes straight out to all administrators on all sides of the organization.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Dr. Foster. Keith Mercier, CBiz Insurance Services. I grew up here, just had, as you know, the second of my two children graduate from Riverview, so I'm happy with that. My question to you is, because a school district's rating is so important to the business community, or how the school board flows in that. What is your game plan on keeping the business community engaged in what's going on here at the landings and around the county?
And actually, I think that's an untapped area that we have. I think we as a district have great connections with foundations, and foundations reach out and provide a lot of support. I think schools reach out to business partners within their school community, but as a district at large, I think we can do a lot more with that. There are, even in the 4 months that I know, a lot of connections as far as making the school district operate efficiently. And a great school district creates a great community, and vice versa, and working with different providers. And when I look at business partners, to me, it's not money. It's also the services that that different businesses provide. So I'll use an example at Philippi. You know, when I first started there, within the first year, I said we're going to do a run. We wanted to get Philippi's name out in the community. Many people may not realize back in the day, Philippi almost closed based on enrollment, and we did a huge shift as far as getting Philippi out into the community. And we developed a partnership with New Balance. They had kids at the school, and it was a whole partnership not only to create the run, but also to provide shoes to our students and to develop that kind of relationship. But I think when we look at business partners as a community, when we're looking at building schools, that involves builders. When we're looking at getting land, that's working with different developers. There are so many different components to making sure that our schools run efficiently. I think we can do a lot more as a district based of reaching out. There are different things that I want to do. For example, as being an alum here, I want to create a Sarasota County School District Alumni Club, to have an organization that we bring in people that maybe are not currently involved in the school district. Their kids have graduated, so they're kind of going on their ways, to keep them engaged, keep them involved in our school district in different ways, and keep that connection, even when their kids graduate, that they continue to have those partnerships with our schools.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Only Dr. Foster, Paul Caragiullo, I'm a district parent. I have a very general question. What's your assessment of the culture here at the office within the administrative school?
I spent 24 years at the school and came here the last 2 years. I will be honest, I think there's a disconnect between our schools and the district. And I think if you go out and you talk to the people at the schools and you talk to the teachers, I think that's what you're going to hear. And so, when I use the example, we go back to the instruction question, and teachers they're pulling me out of the classroom again. Don't they know what I need to do? Don't they know we have all this testing? I think when things like that happen, it shows that they're not on the same page. I'll use the example with safety and security in HR. We haven't been at principal meetings. I talk to principals, and principals will say, it's great to do the collaborative planning and all that, but my reality is I start every day getting substitutes in the classroom. I start every day hiring people. I start every day making sure I have a safe campus, that you can't do those things you can't educate the kids without the operations. And so, like I said, I want to create a connection. When you see, when I pass out my folders, I have kind of a new concept for our strategic plan, and I have it written in gears, and the gears are employee engagement, our employee experience, parent engagement, our organizational effectiveness, and if those are operating together, we're going to increase student achievement. And I think right now we have that academic arena going here, and we're not pulling in all the other pieces. And so I feel that getting the people here back into the schools and spending time in the schools, in the classroom, that's going to bridge that gap so that people that are working here understand what it's like to be in the classroom and what it's like to be at the school. I think one of the best things I bring is I'm only 2 years removed from being at a school. I spent 24 years at a school. I've only been here for 2 years. And so I still have huge connections back at the school, back with the parents. I have my own kids in the school, and I'm bringing that piece back to the schools, because that's what it's all about, is what's happening with the students in the classroom, and making sure when we set up programs that the teachers are on board, that things aren't being decided here without input from the teachers at the school site.
Hello, Dr. Foster. Eric Robinson. I think we've met before. And I had the privilege of coming to your school and seeing you as a principal there, and seeing you spend your time with kids just coming up and randomly giving you hugs. It seemed like the best job in the world. And I was going to ask you a financial question, but one of your food service workers asked me to ask you this question.
Okay.
Why do you want this job?
Okay.
I mean, anybody who's watched the school board meetings has to ask, why would somebody who's been up there and actually knows, I understand somebody who doesn't live here, doesn't realize, well, you know what this job entails. You left getting hugs from 6-year-olds all day long.
Yeah.
And I imagine none of them are giving you hugs. Why do you want this job, Dr. Foster?
Great question, and thank you for asking that question. So the reason I want this job is I love Sarasota County Schools. It has been my entire life. I have spent my entire life dedicated to the district. So going back to when I was at Riverview, I was president of the student council, I was editor-in-chief of the yearbook. I have spent my entire life dedicated. When we look at superintendents, I've been in the district 26 years. We've had 11 superintendents in 26 years for an average of 2.36 years per superintendent. The only superintendent that we hired in this district that graduated from Sarasota County Schools was Lori White, and she served for 9 years. If you take her 9 years out of the mix, we have 17 years with 10 superintendents for an average of 1.7 years. I am fully committed to this district. So if I get the job, I feel that I can move us in that right direction. I'm not looking to go anywhere else. I'm fully committed to the community. I'm fully committed to the students, the parents. Like I said, I've had my own students in the district. So the reason I left the Hugs is because I want that environment that I had at Philippi to be district-wide. I feel like when I was a teacher, and I got the same question when I left my classroom as a teacher. I loved being a teacher. I had a great classroom experience, 8 years, had a great experience. When I left the classroom, they said, why are you leaving the classroom? You love your students. And I said, because I want to do that at the school level. And so then I went to Philippi, and I feel like I was able to create that at the school level, and we had great parental involvement. We had great programs, great student achievement. My last year there, we had 80% of our students scoring 3 or higher on reading. We had 87% on math, and our demographics are very similar to the district. And so then to step away, and I stepped away with my 2 kids there. And believe me, they weren't happy about that, but it was because I want that for the district. I want that for the community. My husband also grew up in Sarasota, and so my whole life is 100% here. I'm 100% in, and I want our school district to be what I know it can be, and I know we can be number 1. I know we can. If we look at our scores, there's potential, significant potential. We're sitting in 20th place in graduation rate. We should be number 1. We're sitting in 15th place in middle school acceleration. We should be number 1. And so when we break down the data, that's why I left, because I want to be able to get those scores and get our community, our school, where it should be with the community support that we have.
Well, if you ever have a bad day, go across the street and get some hugs.
Okay.
Good morning, Dr. Foster. My name is Katrina Ward. I am a 32.5-year employee of Sarasota County, recently retired. This is my 2nd year in retirement. And I understand your passion and love for Sarasota County, because I have that same level of passion still and love for Sarasota County schools. I am a former counselor trainer for the district, former teacher, classroom teacher at the secondary level. And I'm also a former district administrator. I managed the Office of School Choice for the last, I'm going to say, 12 years of my 32.5. With that being said, the counselor part of me always comes out in everything that I do. And so when I think about diversity in education, I think of the many different learning environments in Sarasota County's public schools. I think of the many different student populations that we serve, the wide range of those students' learning styles, and how they acquire new knowledge and how they retain that new knowledge, and then how they apply that knowledge. I also think about the families that the children that send their children to us with all these various backgrounds. There's so many different backgrounds, so many different experiences that our kids come with. So with that being said, there are so many factors that evolve around diversity. So there's sometimes a belief that a commitment to excellence certainly has an impact on commitment. So diversity, pardon me, I'm so sorry. So I guess what I want to know is, as an educational leader, how would you describe the relationship between diversity and excellence? And then what kinds of leadership efforts will you use to encourage a commitment to excellence through diversity?
Okay. I mean, my thing is that we always create programs and expectations for all of our students. We want to ensure that all of our students have opportunities. So I'll go to the choice thing because I know you ran the choice, and I'll bring up House Bill 1, yeah, because I know that is a big topic that's brought up frequently. I think, one thing that House Bill 1 pushes is that all students have choice with programs. And one thing that I think we need to do in our district is make sure that all students have access to those programs. So we have some programs, and I'll use Pineview, for example, where we provide transportation. So anywhere you live in the district, you can have transportation to Pineview, which is fabulous. Riverview, IB program, you can't. And so I want to make sure that any student that wants to be part of Riverview's IB program, Sarasota High's ACE program, Pineview's program, Booker High's VPA program, that every child has the same opportunity to participate in different programs, and that we are providing programs to meet the needs of all of our students, and providing opportunities so that whatever interest all of our students have, that they can find that interest within our school district. I think we did a great job of that for many, many years, and we created and established a lot of wonderful programs. Over the recent years, we've created some academies at some of our high schools, but elementary and middle, we really haven't created as many different programs. I know Philippi is an IB program. We don't have a lot of magnet type different base programs at our elementary and middle schools. I think that's one reason at our middle schools, a lot of people are choosing to go to charter schools, because charter schools are creating different programs and diverse opportunities for students. I think we need to do a better job of that. And so one of the things that I proposed in our organizational structure, we currently have one executive director that oversees all of elementary. And we have one executive director that oversees all of secondary. Is actually to break that down. So we have an elementary north, elementary south, a middle, and a high, so that those executive directors can really focus in with the schools and create programs to meet the needs of our students. And so when we have a school, for example, where enrollment's not high, we say, what are we doing? What do we need to do differently to attract students to the school? Because ultimately, with all of the students in the district, we want to make sure that we are meeting the diverse needs that everyone brings to the table. And so whether a student likes the circus and they want to participate in Sarasota High's circus program, or they like performing arts, they want to participate in the Booker High performing arts program, we want to make sure that we're providing those programs and bringing that down even to the elementary and middle school level.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Dr. Foster. I'm Dr. Gary Compadicus. Been here for 40 years. Got a lot of kids around here, and they go to the public schools and all that. And problem being last is you've got a good question. And some, got Hoppin stole my thunder, and so did Carajul over here from New York. I knew that was coming, So anyway, I'll have to punt on the other thing. But I'm a businessman. I've got 800 employees all over the state. And we've been given a mandate. We were in all the newspapers and everything, changed the board. The culture has been set in this in the school system for many, many years, and you're part of that culture because you've been here for so many years. You have all your friends, probably a lot of people you work with, that you see at lunch and see in the Publix, and you're going to have to make a lot of hard choices and not be very friendly to everybody, and that's a very hard thing to do. Because everybody wants to be liked, I guess. I mean, I'm a bad manager. I just hire some mean people and fire people because I can't stand firing people. But this has got to really change a little bit, okay? Because what's going on in the news, I don't even know if it's really all true, because I asked my daughters that go to elementary school, hey, Dad, talk to you about, and they're just graduated. So have they talked to you about your sexual orientation or anything in the school? And they go, no. I mean, my daughter said no. So I don't know if what I'm hearing is just exaggeration or not, but when I was in public school, Carajul up in New York, we got hygiene at 7th grade, okay, and they started talking about heavy petting, whatever that is. But when did they start teaching that type of the kids in elementary school? And what are you going to do about this problem you're going to have trying to steer this big ship and change this huge culture? Because you have the teachers on one side, the parents on one side, the community at large. And it's really a mess. It's a tremendous job that you're going to have to do. I mean, I mean, your greatest strengths are your greatest weaknesses. You're obviously qualified. In fact, I'm sure all the people in the city there are qualified to have this job. It's just, you're on the inside and all these people are your friends, and it's going to be a very, very tough thing for you to do. So how do you go through your mind?
And so, I think one thing that I've always done is I have extremely high expectations. I believe in trying to coach people up first, and trying to work with people to say, this is the direction we're going. This is the ship. This is the new norm. This is what we expect. And I keep going back to the safety and security and all of that because we've been lax in our district with some of these things that I know that have been brought up in our meetings. And my thing is we set the expectations, we put it out there, and I have, and unfortunately had to do, as 13 years principal at Philippi, I had 7 years where I didn't even have an AP, so I did it all on my own. And it's more that you set the expectations, and I think you can go through it in a fair manner, but you go through, and this goes through HR, that this is the bar, this is the expectation, this is what you have to do. And if that doesn't happen, then you say, this is what I expected, and this is not what I'm seeing. And so it goes as a very clear process versus I'm not hothead. I'm not one that you go all along and then all of a sudden, you get upset about something and then jump to this conclusion. It's a matter of having a very clear, linear thing. One thing that I put in the organizational chart is that we need to have a leadership development program. So then that would go, if you're talking from an administrative standpoint, outlining the expectations, having somebody that leads those efforts and saying these are the expectations, rewriting the evaluation system for our leaders. I've also put in a professional learning. An organization our size, we do not have a professional development department. We have not had one since 2017, and we are definitely feeling the effects of it. And that goes there as well, as far as these are the expectations from, as far as the evaluation tool, rewriting all the evaluation tools for all of our staff. And then you just go through, we have fidelity checks throughout. You say, okay, this is the expectation here on day one. After we do fast data on the first, we're gonna meet again and we're gonna see where you are. And then we're gonna do it again after fast test 2, and then we're going to do it. So that becomes a factual, not a personal thing. It's we have I have lots of connections and stuff in the district, but we have a business to do. We're over $1 billion organization. We have over 45,000 students, and it's our responsibility to educate them, and it's our responsibility to make sure things are done correctly. And if they're not, it's a matter of spelling it out and saying, this was the expectation, and in a very clear and organized fashion that we just have that uncomfortable conversation. So I think it's just a matter of laying it out, going through a fair process, but having accountability measures in place. I think sometimes our district has shied away from that, and it's, oh well, they're so nice, or they work so hard, and that's great. But at the end of the day, our responsibility is to make sure the kids learn. And if they're not learning, or if the culture's not there, or students are not going to the school, or whatever the concern is, we have to face that head on. And I believe in facing the issue, not necessarily the person. So although I might have a connection with the person, if there's an issue that needs to be, then you address the issue. And that sometimes might impact the person, but you're addressing the issue.
So the next question comes from gentleman behind you.
Okay. Hi.
Dr. Foster, I apologize that I'm not there in person. Really appreciate this conversation and your passion as a Sarasota native, like a few of us in the room, for this community and growing your roots deep here. I have 2 children in the system, and I am the board chair of Unidos Now. So I think maybe the question, because there's been a lot of great questions that have already come out, maybe I would ask for you, and appreciate the sports analogies, and even Tom Brady needing coaching, if you might reflect yourself with us and over your long career in this district, and we start with the folks that give you hugs, the children and families. We talk about your teachers. If you could give us, that vulnerable 360-degree evaluation of those strengths, weaknesses, where are your areas for development, when it comes to your role, particularly as a leader, as a principal, but now as the interim superintendent and working in the landings for the past few years. What does that journey look like for you? And if you were to channel for us that 360 evaluation of the folks that have interacted with you over your career, the families, the staff, your teachers, the administrators now in the landings, what does that look like that tells us the type of leader you are?
And which direction am I talking? This direction or?
You can face the rest of the folks. I've grown accustomed to your back, so don't worry about it.
Okay, all right. All right, so I'll start with my strengths. And so I think, a lot of times your strengths are your weaknesses as well. So my strengths are I have vision. I know where I want the district to go and where I believe the district can go. I'm driven, I'm focused, I'm an extremely hard worker, extremely dedicated. I think that can also be a weakness. I think sometimes I might move too fast. I don't want to wait. I know things that we need and we need them now, and I don't want to wait. And I need to make sure that I'm bringing everybody along on the journey and make sure that we have had all the conversations that need to take place before decisions are made, and make sure that, it's a big ship. There's a big ship. So when I say, and I'll use the technology example too, when we initially had the conversations with technology, it was, okay, we're going to do the student information system. And that's going to take us 3 to 4 years. And then we're going to move into the business system. And my initial thought was, no, because we can't wait. We needed this system 5 years ago, and we can't wait for the student information system to go in place before we move to the business system, before we move to the HR system. You're talking 6 or 7 years before we get to the HR system. And so I think sometimes I move fast and I say we can do it and we can do it all. I just need to make sure that I'm bringing everybody along the way. And as I said, I'm very driven. I think some people might say I'm intense, and maybe too intense. And so my husband this morning said, "Smile. Make sure you smile. Make sure you smile." And so I think trying to remind myself of that kind of stuff and make sure that as we're moving forward and we're moving to this new level, that everybody is on board and comfortable with the pace that we're going. Is that?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So as we're going to wrap up, why don't we give you the opportunity to pass out your,
Okay.
and then I'll ask you to summarize. Maybe you may want to refer to some of the.
Okay.
And is there an opportunity to get the handout digitally as well?
Yeah, I can send it to you.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm. So basically, the first page is just a cover letter, and then I shared kind of a transition plan that I put over in 3 phases. So basically, from now till like December. And so basically, phase 1 is what we would do in June and July, prepping for the start of school. And if you have an opportunity to kind of look, you'll see that the things in my plan we're moving forward. We're moving forward, as I said, even on Wednesday before they select, because we have all these things in motion. I have been working as the interim superintendent for the last 4 months to get these things in motion. So whether it's the programmatic review, whether it's the technology piece, whether it's the textbook adoption, we're in the middle of the textbook adoption, all these things are in place. Other people that would come on board would be spending that time learning the area, meeting the people, getting to know different community partners, which of course, yes, I would continue to expand and do that as well, but I'm able to hit the ground running as far as starting to move our district forward with instruction, that there's no time wasted, that we would immediately start. When we go to phase 2, that's the launch of the school year, and those are the things as far as how do we get the school year up and running, making sure that we, for the first time in many years, we're gonna have enough bus driver, we're gonna have every bus driver position filled, which is fantastic. And that makes sure that means that we need to make sure that those bus routes are ready, that they're communicated to the families. And if things that I've heard over the years is that parents will say, I call in and I can't get in touch with anyone. I don't know where my route is. I don't like where my bus driver, my bus stop is, that we're going to have those communication pieces in place. So all of these things, I bring this knowledge to the plate, and all the pieces I've known from the school site and from the district, that we can get the ball rolling right away. So phase 2 is getting the school year up and running, and then phase 3 is where we really jump into the strategic execution of how we are going to propel the district forward and really increase student achievement. I have the accountability and transparency team, which I called it. These are those key leadership positions. If you've had the opportunity to watch the school board workshops over the course of the last month or so, I have talked about these key positions. I've referenced them in this meeting today, or this interview today, with the Executive Director of Professional Learning, Executive Director of Leadership Development, and the Executive Director of the 4 different, 2 elementary, 1 middle, 1 high. To me, this is how we set an accountability system. The Professional Learning Department provides the training for our teachers. It provides the support, so that if our teachers want reading training, other things, that we provide that training. And we used to have a robust professional learning program back in the day, and I want to get us back to that. The leadership development program is making sure that our administrators know what to look for in the classroom. So you first teach the teachers, this is how you're supposed to be doing it, and then the principals make sure that they see and know what they're looking for in the classroom. One other thing I did want to talk about professional learning too, that's part of this, is increasing our internship program. Because we have not had that, we have not been recruiting interns. So when I look as an HR, and when I was in HR and we would go out and we were trying to recruit, everybody's trying to recruit the new grad. If you recruit interns, you're a year ahead of them. And so you bring them in as an intern, then you have them working under your best teachers and lined up ready to be teachers in the district. And so that's a system that we can create that puts those people significantly above anyone that we would hire coming out of school. And then the final part of this plan is that you have the executive director over the levels. Our current model, they're stretched so thin, so the elementary currently is 23 schools from North County to Northport, that at most they could get to each school one school per day. If they went to one school every day, they would only get to each school once per month. And that's not an effective way to really have that executive director involved. That's a management model. We want to bring it from this 45,000-foot view down, so that I can say to the executive director, you have 11,000 students in your schools. How are they doing? Where are your vacancies? How is your PM1 versus PM progress monitoring 1 versus progress monitoring 2 data? Are they moving forward? If not, what are you doing about it as the executive director? It brings that level down. I think these 3 areas are connected, and this is how we're going to increase scores. The next one breaks down our data. And it gives the data over the last 6 years, or actually 7 years. We didn't have it in 2020. This is the time span that we had FSA. And you can see our rankings. You can see, if you look on the bottom, and I do how we compare, and I've already referenced this, where we're 15th in middle school, we're 20th in graduation rate. Those are areas that we need to work on. If you look at our ELA learning gains of our bottom quartile, we've been in the 40th percentile for the whole 6-year span. It's time that we do things drastically different than we've done them in the past. We can't just tweak things. We need to completely change how we approach instruction. And so that goes back to this model of how we're going to approach instruction, and how we're going to train our teachers, and how to teach differently to make sure that we're moving that needle. The next page is, I shared the gears. This is the thought process with our strategic focus. I do think I strongly believe our strategic plan needs to be rewritten. If you go through our strategic plan, math and science are not referenced in it, and that is a concern to me. It was a concern when I saw it. That when you look at student achievement, our number one thing with our strategic plan is that you are going to increase reading scores, you're going to increase math scores, you're going to increase science, graduation rate. Everything revolves around that. That's what we're here to do. That is what we're in the business of doing. So when we make a safer campus, we're making a safer campus so the kids can learn to increase student achievement. If we change and increase the bus driver rate, we're increasing the bus driver rate so we have enough bus drivers to get kids to school on time so that they can increase student achievement. And so everything relates to that. And the idea, going back to the new evaluation tools, everything for every position in the district is going to be geared to student achievement. And when we look at going back to 2005, we had a slogan back then that it said, everyone owns the graduate. And I believe every single employee in the district owns the graduate. And we need to get back to that mindset, that it's the bus driver that greets that student in the morning can make or break the child's day. So it's setting a reset for the district. And then the rest in here goes through my resume and some reference letters that were written and a letter that I had sent initially to the board in May when I applied for the position. So, I mean, I think I've shared in here, I'm dedicated. If given the opportunity, I will be fully committed to ensuring that our district is successful.
And thank you. It's a great summary. So thank you very much. And I know you have a little time, and then you have your next interview.
Okay. All right. And I just want to thank you all again for taking the time to come in and your commitment to the process. I appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you. All right.